Shout out to James for posting this article on Sports Illustrated. But he actually posted an article about ESPN Jeremy Fowler, who said before the trade deadline, Cincinnati kind of caved. And we don't normally see this type of concept, but going pretty much over the last couple years, Cincinnati has been very firm. They want a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. That's what they want. They will take a second if you give them a package with players and maybe some other picks. But if it's just one pick for one player, they want a first for Trey Hendrickson. 100%, it's not going to change. And teams always said that's way too steep of an asking price. You know, we have to give him a contract. Plus, you want to give us we want to give up a first-round pick. We're not going to do it, right? And this has been the age-old, this is why Trey's not going to get traded. Well, according to Jeremy Fowler, Cincinnati kind of gave in a little bit. So, before the trade deadline, right before the trade deadline, literally within the last week, they gave in. They were asking for a second-round pick. Now, keep in mind, any team that trades for Trey Hendrickson, you're not getting a top 5 pick, okay? Right? You're not seeing the Jets, who just traded away, Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. They're not the team trading for Trey Hendrickson, right? The teams trading for Trey Hendrickson are the teams where their draft picks are going to be anywhere from 22 to 32. You're not going to see the Cowboys. Well, actually, the Cowboys, to be honest, they almost did. But even if the Cowboys trade for Trey Hendrickson, I guarantee you know what pick they would have given us? The Packers' first-round pick. They would have given us the Packers' first-round pick. So, because of that, again, we wouldn't have gotten the top 20 pick. So, no matter what way you shake it out, your first-round pick the Bengals were going to get was pretty much a second-round pick. Because, again, pick 26 to pick 32, it's pretty much a second-round pick. And it was actually a really cool article that came out a couple years ago, actually, where there was a bunch of scouts actually said that, NFL scouts, that most teams, if not all, when they go into the first round, they only have 10 or 15 guys that are graded to go in the first round. The rest of the guys, they have them graded to go second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, right? But there's only like 10 to 15 guys that most scouts, when they go in the draft, have graded to be first-round picks. So if you don't have a pick that is, let's say, hypothetically speaking, 10 to 15, you're kind of in this weird spot where it's not that you don't care about a first-round pick, but other than the fifth-year option with having, a quarterback or maybe an offensive lineman, drafting fifth-year option is very important. You're not as, going crazy to get a first-round pick rather than just getting a second-round pick at that point. In the end, unless you really want the fifth-year option, it's usually cheaper to get a guy in the second round than the first round, just because of how the money works when it comes to each round. Every single round, the players get paid less and less. First-round picks are also fully guaranteed contracts. Second-round picks are not. So there's also that stipulation as well, right? You kind of want to get a second-round pick for that reason. I'm not saying, obviously, the higher pick you get, the better player you get in theory, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, you look at it and we see some guys in the second round look a lot better than the first round, right? So my point in all this is that Bengals winning a first-round pick to a second-round pick, it is a massive difference because, again, teams that are going to give us a second-round pick, it's the same concept here as a first-round pick, right? It's going to be pick 22 to 32 in the second round. So, in theory, that's equivalent of almost a third-round pick, right? That's almost a third-round pick in theory. So, it's kind of interesting to see Cincinnati cave a little bit here and kind of just say, hey, you know what? At the very last second, they kind of just got in this mode of, let's just try to do it. Let's just try to get rid of him. Let's just try to get something for him. Let's just move on from him. Which kind of begs the question, will they still franchise tag him at the end of this year? Franchise tagging Trey Hendrickson with $39 million fully guaranteed. So if they were kind of more amped to, like, go down on their asking price, I wonder if they're going to be that same capacity when the year ends and they have to pay him $39 million fully guaranteed, or are they just going to let him walk? I think with how this season is going, Cincinnati might be kind of in this weird spot where, again, Duke Tobin now is talking. They're talking about Duke Tobin might be fired within the next week or so. Zach Taylor, 100%. If Duke's gone at the end of this year, Zach Taylor is gone as well. Because whatever GM we get, as long as we get a GM with a competent ball sack at this point, the realistic thing is he's going to come in. He's going to want to put in his own guys. He's going to want to take over. He's going to want to have his own coaches, positional coaches, and he's going to really want to just take over the squad, which I think, in all honesty, if you're the Brown family here, that's the best and most logical thing to do. I know they love power and control, but at the end of the day, if you really want to boost up ticket sales and money, you just let whoever comes in take control, and you hope that they're the guy that's going to fix everything. But that's also, you got to think, it's also a selling point to have an additional a second round pick if you're getting a new GM, because then say, hey, you have another second round pick to try to fix this crap. But again, I just wonder if that's like, their mentality. Like, did you see the Jets? The Jets sold all their pieces pretty much. They sold Quinnen Williams. They sold Sauce Gardner because they just tore everything down and rebuilt. So, it's just, again, it's a food for thought here. And obviously, we're never truly going to get the answer to this question. Like, was this, like, the Bengals, like, final, like, hey, we're just going to tear it all down and rebuild here? Or was this just a, moment where maybe they got together and said, you know what, let's just get this done with. Let's just get this figured out and, see how it works. But again, as it says here, Dallas, which pursued him heavily, and it wasn't just Dallas, the Commanders pursued him, which actually Commanders would have been a top 15 pick in the end here. Now, looking at it without Jaden Daniels, that would have been pretty good. But, like, again, Dallas could have also been a top 15 pick. 49ers pursued him. I know the Colts pursued Trey Hendrickson, and a couple other playoff teams did. I think the Eagles did it well, I believe. So, I don't know. That's another factor that I always find weird too. It's like, why weren't I understand, like, you don't want to give up too much capital for an aging guy like Trey. He's obviously injured right now. You want to play this smart. But, like, giving up a late second-round pick, because, again, it would be a late second-round pick here, and if Cincinnati kind of caved in, I wonder why teams just didn't do it. And maybe that's another factor, because the Cincinnati Bengals went from winning a first to a second. Maybe teams saw that as, like, a way for them to hopefully try to negotiate them even down more, right? Get Trey for even cheaper. And it just simply is, when you try to do that with the Bengals, what's that motto? We don't negotiate with terrorists. That's kind of how the Bengals look at it. So maybe the Bengals said, hey, listen, we went from a first to a second. That's a miracle. And teams try to go down even more. And Cincinnati just, shut down like an angry teenager going through an emo phase. So maybe that's also a factor. I don't know. Again, I'm speculating a lot, right? We're speculating because this is stuff that we won't ever know about. And we don't usually get kind of, privative information like this. We don't kind of see behind the curtain. And normally that's because it's, I'm not going to get canceled, actually. Let me just shut up. Anyway, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one.